This is Your Own Best Company, a podcast for people who love to work alone. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Your Own Best Company. This is a podcast for people who love working alone. And the person that I am going to be talking with today is Casey Rossi. Now, I had the occasion to meet Casey at a panel discussion that we both did on podcasting. What's it been, about 2 months ago, Casey?
Yes.
And I was really, I thought her personality, her knowledge, all of that were just so delightful that I wanted to have her come on the show. And I don't even really know what we're going to talk about today, Casey. I'm just kind of wanting to see where we can go with this. But we've had an opportunity to have another conversation, and I think you're just going to really love what she has to say about pretty much everything. So, Casey, would you give me a little bit of information? I know right now you're a business coach for women. You do business and leadership coaching. You're on a mission to unite and amplify empowered women. You're a scuba diver. Mm-hmm. You're living a plant-based life.
Absolutely.
All right. And you're a lover of all things light-filled. And I'd like to start with that question. What does it mean to be light-filled?
That's such a brilliant way to start, Franklin. First off, thank you so much for having me. I love that we don't know where this conversation is going, because I think that's where all the nuggets are, right? When it's just so authentic and free flowing. So light-filled to me is an essence. It is really something that can be captured when you're in somebody's energy. It's their spirit that's coming through, and it can be found in nature. It can be found in plants and animals and people. Really, anything that has this beautiful magnetic spirit is what I'm talking about. That's what draws me in. I want to be around those people, places, and things. And yeah, it just is really something that juices me up.
You haven't always been a coach. And I'm really interested for you to tell a little bit of your story, going back beyond, starting your coaching business. Tell us about the company that you owned prior to that.
Absolutely. So if we're really going right back, it was actually 10 different companies. So I started my first corporation at 19, but prior to that, my business partner and I had established 9 different companies, ranging from exterior house painting to nutritional counseling to watercolor, gem and mineral jewelry. So it was all over the board. And we never really gave each one of those endeavors an opportunity to fructify. So we were kind of going at a rapid pace over, I would say it was about 4 years that we iterated 9 different identities. And then we had this running joke between us that I just said, like, I cannot go and make new stationery at Kinko's one more time. Like, I just don't have it in me. And so we agreed that we would do the conventional route if our 10th business didn't take off as fast as we were hoping. And as destiny had it, it was in our cards to have that be literally the sweet spot. And that business was called Angelic Gourmet. We started out of the basement of our home, putting together upscale gift and gourmet, primarily chocolate covered pretzels. And that just grew exponentially. We had to leave our home-based business within the first 9 months and relocate into a licensed kitchen. And that just really grew from there. And we ran that international company for 17 years. We hit the 7+ figure mark and really made people happy through chocolate.
What's not to love?
Yeah.
It grew over 17 years into this, really remarkable corporation. And at some point you walked away from it.
Yeah.
What led to that?
So I have always been passionate about plant medicine, complementary modalities, and health. And as I started to deepen that on my own personal level, I furthered my studies in aromatherapy because I started kind of digging into that in the early 90s. And I really just started feeling out of alignment selling sugar. And for me, I just knew I wanted to do something more, and I knew that it had to be aligned with my values. And so I wanted to further my solopreneurship in the field of aromatherapy at that time. And so as things have it, we ended up selling that company in 2011. And that's when I really started venturing off on my own and doing these other creative ventures that felt more in alignment to who I wanted to be and how I was living my own personal life.
Can you talk about the transition for you from owning a bigger company, transitioning into being basically your own company, at least for a while? What was that transition like for you? And what were the adjustments you had to make?
Yeah, it was a difficult transition and it surprised me. I didn't realize how special being a part of a dynamic duo was. And I feel like when things feel so natural, it's really common to take it for granted. And I didn't realize that we had complementary skills that just made everything click. And it was this synergy that gave us this amplified power. And then all of a sudden it was just me. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, it's me, myself, and I. There's nowhere to hide. There's no one that's going to be like the front person because Cher, my bestie and business partner, was very outgoing. And I'm an introvert by nature. And so, she would be kind of the face of it. And she would do like, the human resources part of our team because we had like 25 employees in the height of our season. And I was really kind of more of the behind the scenes, up in the office, buttoned up Casey, getting the strategies done. And all of a sudden, all of those responsibilities were now put into my lap. Then on top of that, being your own boss and being a solopreneur, you now have to speak about yourself. You have to sell yourself. All the marketing is surrounded around your name, your brand. And so many things came up for me that I had to deal with. And I would say that it really did feel like this identity wobble, where I really had to find myself again. And maybe for the very first time, because you have to remember, I was a teenager when I started that corporation. So 17 years later, all of a sudden, it's like I was in my adulthood, in my womanhood, and finding myself really as a soloist for the very first time. So there was some transitions there and some layers that I had to peel back for sure. What does success look like for me as an individual? And how do I want to represent my brand now that's separate from a corporation with a team? So many layers and variables there that definitely contributed to this entrepreneurial journey. Like I always say that being an entrepreneur tests you in ways that polish your personal development in opportunities that are not there in many, many other facets. So I definitely got polished.
For sure. So in 2011, when you sold the other company, what were the steps that it took for you to go into the coaching direction?
Yeah. So what I found happened was I fell into something that I think is very common, especially for women trying to reinvent themselves in their 40s, where I ended up on this course carousel. And I think part of that is like the imposter syndrome and perfectionism and like, I need to know more, be more, do more, get more accolades. And so I fell into that trap for a couple of years, getting one certification program after another. But what happened there is I made these great connections with women that were also pivoting, and they were going into positions that they really felt their heart was drawn to. They were stepping away from a soul-sucking job, many times the 9-to-5 black and white corporate world, and moving into wellness positions, holistic health positions like aromatherapy, massage therapy, nutrition. And the interesting thing was I started to see a repetitive pattern where they were really great and confident in their skill set. And then all of a sudden they graduated and they had their shiny certificate and they're like, now what?
Yeah.
What do I do now? Like, how do I market myself? How do I build a website? What's a lead magnet? Like, it was a whole new language. And so then I thought, wow, I'm seeing this need. I have 2 decades of experience from building something from nothing. I could literally help these women bridge that gap and be there to help them with business and marketing. And so that's how I really stepped into the role of coaching.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So it was a pretty organic movement for you then.
Totally organic, really not planned at all. My first introduction really came from the network that I had been building as an author and a maker in the aromatherapy world.
Yeah.
So it was this natural progression to service them in the way then that they needed. So yeah, I already had my tribe built. It had been building for years, unbeknownst to me that I was going to have this new role in that arena.
So in the aromatherapy business, were you like distributing essential oils and things like that?
I was creating my own products for health and wellness. So I had built from scratch like 30 SKUs that really help people on the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual levels. And I loved it. And it was really a great opportunity to connect with the consumer and customize something that they really needed. And then I started writing for different organizations in that field. So started dipping my feet in to establish leadership and expertise in addition to my boutique business with the product end of the business.
Now, did the boutique business continue as you added coaching along?
I did that for about 4 years. And so I decided that I had enough of my manufacturing desires filled with 17 years of the chocolate making and then 4 years of the boutique making. And I was like, I really want to now help others fulfill their dreams and not kind of be the busy bee behind the scenes, like filling, labeling, distributing. So that kind of shifted in that 4-year period.
Very, very interesting. And now it's coaching full time.
It is.
You are doing it. It feels like that you're also creating a lot of content to support your coaching business and to just make connections in the world. Can you talk a little bit about how you started in that direction? Like, what were the content channels that you initially built? What was the learning curve like? Anything like that would be helpful.
Yeah, that's such a good question. I love that you pick up on that. I do sometimes feel like I'm always creating content.
Yeah.
So I first started out with blogging because I really wanted to exercise my writing skills, but then also have an organic channel that people could find me, that they could get value, that there could be this established consistency of, what do I know? How can I help them solve their problems? And so blogging was also, I think, this extension that was easy coming from a place of people pleasing and perfectionism and wanting to kind of polish things behind the scenes in a way that was quiet, that I didn't have demands on me. So there wasn't this fear of like messing up. So I think it was an easy marketing channel for me to begin with. And then as I started to grow that confidence and really develop more ambivert skills, like really that combination of like, okay, if I am going to be marketing myself, I have to establish some extrovert skills. And so then I started doing podcasting. So after about 80 blogs, I moved into podcasting and I started with interviewing because, again, it was an easier way to have that dynamic of being with someone else, lift someone else up, right? Because I have that cheerleader characteristic inside of me. So it was a great opportunity to be like, look at this amazing woman, like, look at all the great things that she's doing. So I did about 100 interviews, specifically in that process of being, in a duo interview. And again, it's all this stair-stepped process, because then all of a sudden, like, my audience was wanting to hear my point of view. And I was starting to grow my confidence and grow my voice, and realizing, like, what are my messaging pillars that I really have a point of view on that I want to share with my audience. And so that's when I started kind of breaking into solo casting. And still to this day, I alternate, because I have met some fabulous, fabulous people from all over the world, all walks of life, all age groups, that are really lighting up the world. So I didn't want to just immediately pivot hard and go straight into solo casting. And my audience loved getting to hear all these other voices. So now I alternate between interviews and solo casting. So it's been a progression.
That's very cool. Now, how long has your podcast been online?
Little over 3 years. And I think we have almost 190 episodes right now.
Excellent. Wow. That's quite an accomplishment, coming up on that 200.
Yes, we need a little party when we hit the 200.
That sounds like a lot of fun. I hope I'm invited.
You are absolutely on the guest list.
Has anything been left unturned for you in terms of creativity? Is there something that you're still looking at accomplishing creatively?
Absolutely. I really thrive on challenge and having an opportunity to stretch creativity, because that's where I think there is power for it to grow. And so for me, I would love to pen a book. So that's definitely something in the creative channel. I'm very interested in organizing women's retreats where we can collectively come together and have transformational opportunities in person. And I feel also that speaking and teaching from the stage in a more global arena is something that I'm also very interested in, which is definitely a shift from working primarily one-on-one in Zoom. Yeah. So these are all opportunities where I still feel like there's so many more growth edge places for me to push to.
Now, your home base is in New York State. Would your retreats be there, or would you like to go other places?
Yeah, such a great question. So I would definitely start in my own backyard. I live in Naples, which is an hour south of Rochester, but it's in the most beautiful arena of rolling hills at the edge of Canandaigua Lake, just really nestled in the Finger Lakes. So I would definitely start here because it is a mecca of creativity as it is.
Yeah.
And then for sure, especially because I love travel, I would want to do some destinations that are also rich in culture and history, and they have great weather. And then as a side bonus, I'd be able to get to travel too. So I see traveling international as like the second tier, but definitely starting in my own backyard.
Oh, that is so cool. It sounds like a wonderful direction to go. Do you already have ideas for your book, or are you still letting that come forward?
I do. I definitely want to incorporate the power of perseverance, because I feel that really speaks to the 31 years of being on this journey. And as we know, even if you've been an entrepreneur for 1 year or 50 years, it's not a linear progression to success. And so I definitely would love to bring in how mindset and perseverance help you go the long haul for sustainable success. And then the other two key aspects that I want to weave in is spirituality, really being connected to your deep why and your mission, because that is also a key that I feel gives you that longevity. It gives you that feeling and impetus to cross the finish line, keep going, keep showing up, for sure. And I think the other key element is, how do we have business without burning out? Because for the first 2 decades, I struggled with adrenal fatigue and persistent burnout that pushed into immune issues and migraines. And so I'm very passionate now about redefining the paradigm of what it means to be successful and showing up holistically in a way that we are taking care of our bandwidth, we're aware of our personality, and just what feels joyful for us without conforming to society's standards. So That in a nutshell. Maybe that's too much in one book, but that's kind of where I'm going in my mind right now.
Well, if you have two books or three, that's fine too.
I like the way you think.
Yeah, it's like that's one of the things that I always look at with my creative projects is that very often they have more than one life. I'd like to go back to the idea that you were just talking about, or not the concept, but the experience of the health challenges that you had had. Can you talk a little bit about what were the things that you felt like led to those health crises?
Absolutely. I think always being on, and my nervous system was very used to being in that reactive mode. And so I think that really started out with having the business in our home. At that time, we had fax machines. So we were always on and waiting for the beep, super excited to hear when an order got faxed through. Even if it was 11 o'clock at night, we'd run down and see like, who is it? Is it a mom and pop or is it a big department store? So that kind of reaction of just waiting to hear the beeps and buzzers was that foundation that was set that really continued on.
Yeah.
Having a lack of boundaries and really being fueled by making people happy, I think was another reason that contributed to not thinking about self-care, but only being 100% focused in the business. So there was a couple things there. Like I didn't have a very diverse life. It was all business all the time.
Yeah.
So that absolutely contributed to not a balanced sense of well-being and to no definitive lines of when my business life ended and my personal life could begin. It was just all business.
Yeah.
So I think that there's so many variables there. And I didn't realize it because I really subscribed to the idea that in order to be successful, that this is just what success looks like. So I didn't even think that there were possibilities. And burnout 20 plus years ago, it wasn't really talked about like it is now, especially post-COVID. Like now people are aware of it. It's almost become a trendy marketing hook, but it wasn't then. And so there was this sense and limiting belief that, to be tired was weak. And, like you even sometimes hear that now with motivational speakers, like you can sleep when you're dead. And so I think like when you come into that arena with those mindset principles, it changes how you show up. And I never really gave myself a break. And then it just manifested into, like I said, the adrenal fatigue, visual migraines that happened 1 to 2 times a week. Really to the point that I ended up putting a small couch in my office because I didn't want to take the time to go home when I had blurred vision, because that just was too much time for transit. So I was like, okay, if I put a little couch, I can just close my eyes for 20 minutes. That's about the duration the blurred vision lasted, and I can get right back to it. So it really kind of got extreme. And it took a while, even after getting diagnosed with adrenal fatigue, to do anything about it because I wore that as a badge. That really fueled my perfectionism. Like, ooh, look, I got this diagnosis, which is really showing I'm working hard, really showing I'm giving it my all. My dad's going to be so proud of me, right? Like all the things. And so I would say it took really years to be like, okay, I need to turn this around. I'm young and I have a long career ahead of me that I want to show up for, and I have a lot of things to do. So definitely a process with a lot of layers.
When did you put on the brakes and say, I have to stop now and I have to refigure everything? When did that happen?
I don't think that happened honestly until I was into my coaching business.
Wow.
Because again, it was an integrity point for me, because now I was trying to help other women build business without burnout. And the only time that I really shifted was when I had that misalignment and thought, I have to do what I teach. I can't just be like, do as I say, not as I do. And that's really what snapped me into making better decisions and putting boundaries in and really seeing and being willing to look at the roots to all of the things that contributed to it.
Do I remember in our last conversation that you talked about Lyme disease?
Yes.
And that's also a factor now.
It is. It is a factor. I was diagnosed in 2020. I got a spider bite
Uh,
and then got Lyme from that. So that has also been a challenge to navigate and manage bandwidth. And especially as an entrepreneur, as a solopreneur, understand your boundaries, but then also, what can you put on a to-do list that is um, realistic,
yeah.
for your energy and for your fatigue. So that, and I know you can relate to this as well. And so it's a dance, it's this dance and self-grace and just being, open and in the moment to how you're feeling and how things progress in that way, if that makes sense.
How do you manage your energy?
I have a lot of self-care that's baked in.
Yeah.
So that's really important to me. And being out in nature, I feel like there's a rejuvenation just from nature's elements of the sun and the chlorophyll and moving and walking in nature. I feel recharge me. Also, and I think, like I'm a daily meditator.
Yeah.
And that is probably my number one recharge. If I was going to think about what gives me instant energy and also cleans the slate from the things that we add on through the day, it would absolutely be the meditation path. I think the other big piece, which, we're programmed for pleasure, but is also managing our diet. And that is still a challenge. I mean, through all these years and all this, knowledge and everything, that's still something. And I think that there's so much neuroscience related to that and instant gratification and, like dopamine and serotonin levels that increase. Like there's so many things that are a part of that. But I think that for me personally, when I'm really aware of limiting carbs and sugar, it absolutely helps any conditions that I've got going on and brings me closer to balance and energy.
So is there ever still a kind of a pull for chocolate covered pretzels?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, the sugar is the hardest for me to leave behind. Everything else has been fairly easy to let go of. Smoking took a while, but once that was gone, it was gone, and I haven't looked back. But sugar, doggone it.
Sugar's so addicting. I mean, they've done studies where they have like lab rats and there was sugar water in the one corner and cocaine in the other. And the study showed that they go to the sugar water. So it's really interesting how addictive that white substance is. And it comes in so many forms that, our white flours and pastas and rices, they still have an effect on our glycemic level. And we're not really looking at that like sugar, like table sugar, but both of those for me, they're two-pronged for what affects my health and my fatigue levels.
Yeah, I have to leave it behind.
Yeah, it's such a bear because they're so fun.
I'd love to shift gears for a minute and kind of move toward your business. I'd like you to tell us a little bit about who are the women that you just can't not help.
Yeah, such a good question. And, coming from a deep desire to help, I think that one of the things to have a successful business is narrowing down that niche because we have this innate instinct to want to help everybody. And even if we say, I want to help every woman entrepreneur, it's still too broad in today's marketplace. So I've really redefined that because before I had wide open doors, I was really on a mission to help every woman, no matter what stage of business she was in. It could be the build, it could be the grow, it could be the scale segment. I wanted to be that for all of the women that came knocking on my door. Now, what really lights me up is a woman that is connected to her mission, that is high achieving, so willing to do the work and willing to be coached, even if it is challenging when it comes to mindset issues or dissolving limiting beliefs. but also a woman that is very interested in the holistic approach that's not just going to zone in on the task list and only be focused in masculine linear ways to achievement. So I've quite narrowed it down.
Yeah.
And I would say that, we tend to serve who reflects our own personality and the path that we've walked. And so I especially love helping women that have had these beliefs of maybe, not being the shiny, flashy marketing that they see on TikTok, the introvert that is very skillful, but is kind of a little bit shy to amplify their gifts. And that has also struggled with people pleasing and perfectionism, because that is truly the cocktail of my past. And so I really intimately know the zigs and the zags to help them get to the other side so they can truly stand in their power and, not be afraid to be profitable and spiritual at the same time.
Give us an example of a success story that helps you to know that you're in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the clients that I worked with was a spiritual writing coach, and she came to me with 3 different websites with different avenues. One was her publishing, and one was her own writing, and then one was helping other people write, and really came to the table with deep insecurities and kind of a fear of showing her full self and all of her facets under one domain. So the one channel, it was safe to have these beautiful, mystical and, spiritual verses come through her. But then there was this other channel where to have the publishing side needed to be very buttoned up and professional. And then the last side was how could she help other people author things, write for magazines, write their own book. And so there was like this segmented nature to that. And so we worked together for over a year, and we really went through dissolving limiting beliefs, but then also the practical side of things, because I'm very practical. I'm a Taurus. That's my sun sign. So things really need to be grounded in data and have this kind of solid foundation as well, in conjunction to connecting to our higher self and using our intuition. So we built her brand. So that started right even with like logo development and brand messaging and really putting together a marketing strategy for her. And at that time, because I've recently kind of shifted away from implementation services, but I built her website and helped her also with like the copywriting in a way that was through the lens of converting for sales. She was an excellent writer, but there's a little shift there when you're thinking about writing for sales conversions. So really putting everything under one umbrella, putting it under her own name. So it was this really beautiful thing, because all of a sudden you saw this powerhouse come through. And, she used to be very shy. And so we worked on getting together new brand shots, and I connected her with someone in my network for beautiful photography. And it was this coming of age for her. And, she was actually over 60. So it was like a really powerful transformation to come to age, step into who she wanted to be in a very competent way, and be willing to do that under her own name and brand. And then really from there, we started putting together ways to diversify her income channels. So we worked on putting a tiered system of her signature program together, which was awesome because she really wanted to enjoy her life, right? Like she had lots of years behind her. And so we really looked at how can we not just build everything around you and your time and your bandwidth, but diversify your income portfolio by bringing in these educational components as an offering. So that was just a great process. And I think for me, when I get chills on a coaching call, like I know I'm doing the work that I'm supposed to do. And so with that particular client and with a lot of my clients, like when truth gets unveiled, and many times it is a spiritual transformation or in the personal development realm, that's what feels so awesome to me, because the other things are skill set based that we can learn, like the technology of putting together a course or how to do a Facebook Live effectively. And that's all awesome. But to me, like that long lasting aha, like I will never be the same woman again, that's like gold to me.
The thing that really stands out, and as we've talked, there are three words that really come to mind that feel like that they're coming through you into the world. One of them is integrity, one of them is cohesion, and one of them is wholeness.
Thank you.
And it feels like that's what you're really bringing into the lives of the people that you serve, are those senses. It's like you were able to help this woman bring all of these different parts of her life together in a whole way that was cohesive. And it represented who she really was. And it brought her into a level of integrity that maybe wasn't there before. That's very exciting work.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you picked up on that. And I think that for that beginning part of my business experience, where I talked about like having this false sense of paradigm of what success looked like, that was a very black and white way that I was living, and I was very segmented. So it was like, this is what business life looks like. And then if when I have space, I can live my real life in color and integrate things like spirituality, aromatherapy, and whatnot. And so I love that fact that you picked up on the cohesiveness and the alignment, because now it's really all about helping women bring their full self to the table, unapologetic. And that's actually what's going to be the secret sauce to attract your divine right clients, is when we're not segmented, we're not wearing a mask during the business, and then being our playful, curious, flawed selves in our real life, but we can just be that 24/7. So thank you for that reflection. It means a lot to me.
Casey, we're nearing the end of our time together already. It's flown by very quickly. Could you talk a little bit about, if someone wants to take a next step with you, what would that next step look like?
Absolutely. So a couple different things, Franklin, and thank you for asking. I would say that I have a 3-part video series that's at no charge called Know Thyself and Lead. And that really breaks down my philosophy and approach to get to your sweet spot, understand what's going to cultivate joy for you, and be in those aligned integrity. So they can capture that at caseyrossi.com/lead. That's really the best way to get your foot into my world. And then from there, if it feels like you want to go further to enhance your performance and profits in a holistic way, you can always book a discovery call with me. And that's at caseyrossi.com/discovery.
And I'm also assuming that if people want to read your blog or listen to your podcast, that they can find those there as well.
Absolutely.
What do you have coming up on the podcast that you're excited about, besides the 200th episode?
Yesterday, I just released an episode on squashing the imposter syndrome for good.
Yeah.
And so there's some tools and techniques in there. And I feel like it's something that I see repetitively, especially in high achievers, that holds them back from really going to the next level, putting their gifts out there. There's tremendous fear laced in that psychological condition. So I feel that recent episode is really going to help people shift perspectives and hopefully bust through their self-imposed glass ceiling.
If you were to go back now, even before the chocolate company, and say, is there anything that you've learned since that time that you do wish that you would have known then before you started?
Yes. I wish I would have known that confidence is not something that's granted to the lucky few, but that we all have it within us. And if we don't feel it right away, that it is a skill that can be developed. It's a muscle that can be strengthened. And I hope that all of our youth can be educated in the way with tools to understand their own confidence, their own inner brilliance, and not be afraid of it.
That's a perfect spot to end on. Everybody, my guest this morning has been Casey Rossi. That's the letter K and the letter C. For those of you who are tempted to write in another way of spelling Casey, CaseyRossi.com is where you can find everything that you need to know about her coaching, about her podcasts, about her blog, and about anything else that she's up to. And I would encourage you to take her up on the offers that she has so generously brought forward today. Casey, is there anything you'd like to say in closing?
I just want to say that it's been a pleasure to connect with you and your energy. Every time our paths have crossed, I just feel like I have found a kindred spirit. And so thank you so much. I really am honored to be here, and I hope that we can continue to stay in each other's orbit.
I am with you on that. I feel very much the same way. And I'm just really honored that you took up my invitation today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Casey. Thanks for listening to Your Own Best Company. If you enjoyed the show, would you do me a favor and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite podcast host? If you really love it, leave me a review or share it with your circles. If you feel like your career is reaching a dead end, or you're feeling a deep sense of dissatisfaction in your work right now, I help people discover their gifts and then find or create new opportunities that are the best fit for their talent, experience, and lifestyle. Email me at coaching@franklintaggart.com for more information. I also help people start, finish, and launch creative projects, and I offer an ongoing marketing mastermind for solopreneurs and freelancers. More information on these programs and services can be found at franklintaggart.com. Thanks again for spending this time with me.